We're live, yeah.
Live. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to our panel discussion on mass adoption of disruptive technology. My name is Kimberly Adams. I will be the moderator for this session. And joining me, we have some great speakers from all over the world doing a lot of cool things. On your top left is Nell, Daly. She is the Executive Vice President of Sports and Entertainment Business and Partnerships at the Together Group. And on your bottom left is Valerian Bennett, who is the Managing Director of Pop Network. And to your bottom right is Andrew Kononykhin, who is the Director of Product at Netbox.Global. I hope I got that right, Andrew. Good to have you guys here. I think let's kick it off with some introductions. So Nell, why don't you start us off?
Well, Kimberly, first of all, I want to say it's such a pleasure, no offense to the guys on the panel, to see another woman, especially talking about this space. It's, as you know, from being at the Bitcoin conference and in the crypto world, NFT world, technology world, financial world, which is something we're going to be talking about today. There's not a ton of women. And so thank you for having me on this panel today. I really appreciate it. It's sweet to see your face. And I'm excited for the conversation. I run, globally, I run sports and entertainment, the division for the Together Group. And what I'm really interested in talking about today with you guys and the audience as well is all about sort of this new wave that's coming. I call it like a technology tsunami that's going to hit us in the next year. That's already started to hit us, certainly in the next 5 to 10 years, about how the crypto world and the gaming world, esports, are all starting to merge, right? And really disrupting technology and what's coming, down the tunnel, down the pipe for us. And how that's going to affect my industry. Certainly, it already has with what we've seen, the explosion of the NFT space, in sports and entertainment. And I think it's exciting. I think it's a little scary, even as we were just talking about backstage. But I think there's going to be a lot of consumer education that needs to happen around it as well. I'm sure you guys are having tons of conversations around that, explaining it both to brands and to individuals about what's going to happen. So I'm psyched for this conversation.
Awesome, absolutely. Valerian, take it away.
Excellent. Well, no, I would definitely echo that we have the opportunity at the Bitcoin conference and started a bit of this conversation. What decentralized history, the idea for us is to help content creators and communities share a much closer relationship rather than have media that you, whether it's big tech or studios. I think you're seeing the whole vibe about that. It's about originality and creativity being unleashed, and I think as Nell of works for quite some time, they're all seeming to hit at the same time, and that's really propelling so much forward. So.
For sure. Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Kimberly. Well, my name is Andrew. I'm from Netbox.Global, and Netbox.Global is a blockchain project, which is actually a web browser which carries blockchain technologies on board. It carries the full functioning blockchain node and carries, virtually all the stuff that a user may need in the world of blockchain. So it acts like a carrier for the disruptive technologies to a wide mass of users. And during the whole of my career, I had been working in the field of software distribution. And when the era of blockchain hit us, we've decided to build a web browser, which is actually a tool which we use on daily basis everywhere, on desktop, on mobile devices. But actually, before we didn't have a product that would deliver such a disruptive technology to the wide mass of users in an easy and intuitive way. So that's what I do. We'll be happy to participate in our discussion.
Awesome.
Kimberly, can you just tell I don't mean to interrupt you, but can you tell the audience a little bit about you as well?
Yeah, for sure. So Kimberly Adams, I work at the DigitalBits Foundation. And so we are a nonprofit organization that supports the DigitalBits open source blockchain network. And the foundation is really focused on growing the space of consumer first applications on the blockchain network, right? So I think all of us more or less work in this space where it's direct to consumer, and we're interacting with these consumers, and we understand their pain points. So I'm glad to be on this panel because we have the experience and the insights here to give, both from the consumer side and the business side. Mm-hmm. So that's a bit about me, I guess. Let's dive in. I know, Valerian, I was looking at some of your stuff, and it said that you bought your first Bitcoin in 2013, yeah?
Yeah. Bitcoin in 2011, so still kicking myself for that one. But I think, like most people, when you hear about Bitcoin the first time, completely ridiculous. And then the rabbit hole. So yes, 2013.
Gotcha. Okay, so I think it'd be good for us to kind of like paint a picture of what did blockchain adoption look like in 2013, 2021, and now 2031. Like, what are the different stages here, and what are the things that are making these changes look different for us?
Mm-hmm. So I think you hit it right on the head, right? If you look back, that long ago, the available was right. There was literally only one Bitcoin browser, and you've seen the explosion, and it seems like so much. It's 4 or 5 years since we've had so many different changes. Part of that is software related, just having. Also, even a bigger part of it is just so much culturally that's happening, right? The old adage is that when this is ready, you can talk about financial this, that, and whatever until people realize, oh, inflation's. Until people see effects of inequality, until you see, in particular for non-financial applications, the effects and centralization. People are like looking for okay, a lot of parts of the system just aren't working, and here's this new technology. So many different things, and from both the financial and non-financial applications. So together, people are aware, and now it's on us as entrepreneurs and creators to satisfy those needs with real people use their. Where it goes from here, I think. I mean, it's crazy to think okay, the last 5 years were pretty. I think that's very. The next 10 are going to be especially as we get more. Really applicable to improving people's lives. I think it's just super exciting from here on out.
Awesome. I have a quick question for Andrew on this one. Andrew, since you're in the development of blockchain, I'm curious what you think is blockchain going to end up being the protocol in 10 years that we do most of our sort of internet browsing on? Right, I love this word, Valerian, that you used about the convergence of all this technology. So I'm thinking AI, AR, VR technology. Now we browse the web. Consumers browse the web by just looking at web pages. I'm not a technologist, by the way, so I break it down for I need it broken down as the dummies, the dummy blockchain, the book for dummies on this one, because this is not my expertise. I'm just learning, but I think it puts me position to ask questions that a lot of consumers are going to be asking in the future. And so I'm just really curious from what I hear going on, that the kind of the way we're going to use the web that we use it now is not going to be the way it's used in 10 years, because so much of what we're going to do is actually going to be on the blockchain, and because of all this convergence of technology that's happening in the space.
Yeah. Hopefully, yes. Hopefully in 10 years, we will be using mostly decentralized applications. Well, now when we want to access a website, we access the physical server of some physical provider. Like for example, we access some of the central servers of Facebook when we enter our profile page on the Facebook. But things could be really different if there wouldn't be any central servers. If the information would be stored evenly over a great many over a platform in the network, so that the access would be way more reliable. It would be failure-proof at the same time, and it would be phishing-proof, because it would be virtually impossible to phish some website of, for example. I believe that there would be much more benefits and well, some technical aspect. In future, I think we will not be in need of the DNS system, which is now crucial for the whole internet. It will just be eliminated just by using the blockchain technology. So I think that that we will see some positive movements, like in a year or two, when there will be the apps, distributed applications on blockchain, when they will be more accessible. And to access those applications, you need to run some kind of authenticators on your client. For example, our browser carries such authenticators for Ethereum network, for our own blockchain network, for some various other blockchains. So out of a box, you get a product which offers you to access of decentralized applications without the need to use to access directly to the provider of this or that service, which I think is way more reliable than the way we access the internet now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I second that also. Like, I mean, I don't want to, put a number out there, but in a few decades, or less than even one decade, we will be the world of the decentralized web, Web3, as we know it in crypto, will absolutely merge with Web2. There's a lot of really cool projects like Valerian's, Andrews, that are building on top of Web2. And so I think if we can really fine tune that user journey so that it's frictionless, then we get to that stage where users can actually interact with the decentralized web in a seamless fashion. Because right now, you have to go set up these private keys. You have to a lot of stuff.
This is why we bundle everything together in Netbox browser. We even carry the apps, which is some sort of analog to the App Store, but which lists only decentralized applications.
Yeah, that's amazing.
By the way, the database of these applications is also stored on the blockchain. So there is no central server which has all the list of these applications.
That's really cool. Yeah.
I think one of the things in terms of like what the panel conversation, our panel in particular is about today, which is, you know, obviously for this mass adoption and how this starts to happen. There's two things I would recommend to the audience. One that was really helpful for me was a book called The Spatial Web, which talks about Web 3.0, again by a guy named Dan Mapes. He has a company called Versa, which you guys are going to be hearing a lot more about in the next, you know, year or two for sure. And he really takes somebody who doesn't really understand the technology behind it and is newer to blockchain, and goes through the history of the technology of the internet and how these things are all, again, going to converge with AR and AI, and everything's going to be built on the blockchain moving forward. And also to Valerian, one of the things that we started talking about at the NFT conference that was right before the Bitcoin conference in Miami, was that I think what's so amazing about NFTs, especially in the digital art space, is that it's like we, like the people, can start to dip our toes into blockchain and crypto and what NFTs are in a very palatable way, right? It's like we can see the art, we understand it, we understand like what a digital asset is. Like, I don't trade crypto yet, which is crazy. I know, I'm like, this is insane. I need to do it. I need to like sit down and do it. I'm embarrassed to even say that I don't yet. And that's like kind of my next step. But I am producing NFTs for major athletes and some performers now, because I wanted to take myself through the process of what that was like, so I would be able to then communicate what it is to you know, regular consumers and to brands. So this is what I love about the development of this, right? It's that sort of, I listen to my son game constantly on Fortnite, and he's living in the metaverse all the time. And he's basically buying NFTs, which are skins. And I understand that, but then to kind of take it one step further and get involved in the NFT world, I think that's one way that consumers are going to start to adopt understanding the blockchain and understanding the technology that's behind what's coming forward, right? I think it's an amazing space that's
you've got it. You're right. That's ultimately it. And to 2013, that it was only then that I got it, right? Once you actually start, because it's all like kind of weird and you kind of get a sense that something's going on, but like once you put your hands on it, it gives you the opportunity to have a moment. So with everything with NFTs, and I think this is one of the critical things that artists, musicians, photographers, the power that they have is to be able to communicate with an audience in a way to the most thing, which is narrative, which is some type of emotional connection that forces you on the initial confusion of the technology, because you want something from that person closer to. Just says, hey, I've got this NFT thing. It's not about the NFT, it's about the experience, and you're willing to put your kind of all the other things that we know are still kind of clunky. You're willing to put yourself through that to get to what the long-term result is. Exactly right. You're able to sort of bank that experience, and then once you swallow the pill, it's keep going and keep going, seeing that more and more and more. And the other part of that is and this is where the economics. We're seeing content creators on so many different platforms and so many different specialties making to keep creating. You've got musicians who make X amount on one NFT that they would have years trying that. So then that creates a whole separate other thread of creativity, right? Content of creativity. And that's ultimately, at least for us, that's what we're trying to do, right? Which is unleash as much creative as possible, right? Creativity is all about fulfilling the needs of an algorithm rather than fulfilling the needs of human love, all the we love to do and create. And musicians, to give you one example, they're making things the algorithm so that higher in the search, rather than just making a groove because you have a bunch of people that like to listen to this thing. So use this technology. Always the case, using technology to make a more human experience, which NFTs are starting to be beneficial for time to come.
Those are some really good points, Valerian. And actually, that brings me to a question that I've asked everyone this, and I've been debating it myself. Do we need volatility to lead to adoption? Because if you think about 2020, last year August, right? Michael Saylor, he bought Bitcoin. Since then, the price has not gone below what it was then, right? Financial institutions are adopting it. Everyone's talking about Bitcoin. These days, they're not asking, is it a scam? They're asking, how can I invest? And so from that standpoint, adoption, well, there's more awareness about the technology or about Bitcoin at least. And now in the NFT space, NFTs became hot because they were selling like crazy, right? You can make 2K in 30 seconds, and artists all around the world was like, I want to get in on this. So my question is, do we need that volatility to sustain itself for the adoption to continue? Or is it a case where the volatility will go away and we're just going to focus on the actual, digital art of a small artist? Their NFTs is probably not that expensive, and it's just something that you want to support? Or do we need this hype around this space to continue for the adoption to happen?
I think because the technology is going to really blow our minds, that the pace of the technology is just going to keep speeding up over the next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, that we're going to see a lot of pushback, a lot of volatility, a lot of questioning, a lot of, is this like for the betterment of humanity, or is it dark? Can some of these technologies be used for evil, or is it really for our benefit? I think that you're going to have a swirl of like that, much like we did. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm the oldest one on the panel here, but I was living in Silicon Valley when the internet was sort of being born, right? I was in San Francisco, in the 90s, and the older people were like, what is this? I don't buy it. It's a scam. Like, this makes me uncomfortable. What is this email? I'm not going to use it. Who's looking at it?
Sound familiar?
Watch. Yeah, these were the conversations we were having. I remember when it got introduced into our, we had to start using it for college, and we were all like, what is this thing? And so, I think that you're going to see a lot of those discussions happening because some of the technology is going to be a little bit, there'll be some resistance to it. But look, in sort of classic media and PR and communications, any story is a good story because it creates these kinds of conversations, which ultimately lead to consumer education, and brand education and enterprise education. So, the disruptive, like out of the disruption, we're going to have these wonderful, both more invention comes out of disruption, right? And more conversations around it that will be helpful for people to understand how they can benefit from using this technology. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I definitely think we haven't even seen that. I don't even think we've seen the beginning of the volatility that's going to happen in this space, because the technology is going to totally blow our minds in the next 5 to 10 years, from what I understand.
I agree. It's not financial advice, but you should probably start trading crypto.
I know. So it's part of the conversation that's going to be posted that I don't yet. I'm so embarrassed. I do notice in the Kimberly, I just want to let you know that there was a question posted for Valerian there, and it would be good if he answered it. I don't know if we can see it.
Let's see. It says, is Pop Master ready for use? Because I see it's already downloadable on Pop Network website. That's your question.
The Pop Master node is the backbone of our peer-to-peer media distribution system. So the master node physically store.
Yeah, so you can think of it as
a souped up torrent client meshed with a crypto wallet. That's the basic, easiest.
All the unused hard drives out there.
All the bandwidth available. If our goal is to truly and have
freely
over to Google/YouTube or Facebook and have them basically getting your stuff.
Okay, let's just
not give them all of our stuff for free. So you put media in all these bits and pieces, all participate. Machine learning, you have pop, have that staked with your machine, then the blockchain will continuously pay you the base layer. Once we have that, then we can start
Netflix, the YouTube, the
Spotify, the Audible built on top of that. So we have a version that you network
now
still on testnet. In the coming months, we're actually actually making it going through our security mainnet version live and available. So super exciting time for us. Obviously, we've been working on it for a while. People
start running it
to start earning pop, and then looking towards the rest of the year where we start to build out the people can make this practical and be able to say, okay, at least at the very first step, we're not going to be people exactly where can start to see the alternative in practice, in action. And it's those sorts of things, right? You know, actually tools of non-technical people, those are the things incrementally that push the whole thing forward. And we this cycle of boom and bust, right, in crypto, where you have this craziness, explosions, whether it's ICOs, whether it's you, it blows up. But then the lows, and not just numerically, the lows are a little bit higher than the previous ones, right? So you set even if DeFi that came up in the boom cycle go away, the things that you're left with typically are pretty important. The things that go, all the stuff that happened with DeFi over the past 2 years, which seems like an eternity ago, right? The thing that are, and that's one of the most exciting things that has happened, is continuing to happen in crypto. You look at the whole yield farming, the colorful things, sushi swap and pancake swap and yada yada yada. I mean, you look at the volume changes, you look at
they're being paired with,
and it's rivaling. It's like, hey, is one of these exchanges, are they going to buy JP Morgan?
But you have all these things
that were unimaginable just a handful of years ago. But once you have these things that continue after that, they seem to be pretty important going forward.
For sure, for sure. And if you think about it, right, adoption is linear until it's not, until like the thing happens and then it becomes exponential. And I guess my question is for both Andrew and Valerian, because you guys are building tools that are focused on consumer adoption. Yeah. What would you say is the one thing you need for you to reach that plateau where it stops being linear and your adoption becomes exponential? Is it the same education thing? What is it?
Absolutely, yeah. Education is extremely important. This is why we even launched in our community, which now encounters more than 50,000 users. We've launched the Netbox Academy, which provides some educational activities among the community. We actually educate people what is crypto, what is private key, how the ownership of a digital asset is proved. This is the same thing with the NFT. The most charming thing about NFT is the ownership that is guaranteed by algorithm, not by some digital right management or things like that, which can come and go. But the algorithm is there. It will stay like for ages. And it's extremely important to understand that in the era of crypto, you really own an asset. This is not that some third party is in charge of the custody of your asset. And as we know, sometimes things happen. Sometimes governments actually seize some assets from their holders, which is not really a good thing, which is not a decent type of behavior, and which can easily be avoided in the world of crypto and blockchain. So this is why we really try to educate people around there. Why should they use this technology? Why is it beneficial? And why it guarantees the ultimate right for this or that asset.
Perfect. And Kimberly, I'm curious to get your perspective on that. Football /
America
fan, and I know you've been doing some work with AS Roma, which is obviously a massive club. And
new manager Joseph Mourinho.
I ordered the Special One T-shirts off the AS Roma store. I'm a big fan. Your perspective on that
Based on
passion. You know, the soccer fans in Roma are completely known as one of the most. I'll say this in a very positive. So I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on adoption from a non-techno crowd.
Yeah, I think for me, like it's amazing to see the DigitalBits ecosystem grow. From a non-technical crypto crowd, it's interesting because yes, the education part is important, but it's more so the integration into the real world. Mm-hmm. Like, I know we see a lot of, crypto companies working with sports and whatnot. But I think the thing that makes it different is what you actually do with them. How do you leverage this team or whatever it is, right? And so, I'm not allowed to really talk about this topic.
Valerian, maybe if she's not allowed to talk about it, because I can a little bit, because I'm doing work with sports teams as well. Kimberly, one thing, I think it's like a little bit TBD, right? So one of the things that you learned at the Bitcoin conference was that some of the early adopters in this space are really found in Africa, in African countries, and in South America, right? They're the ones who are really adopting things. I think it's so interesting with the NBA Top Shots, right? How much that put NFTs into like the regular, I would say, vernacular or psyche of American people. And it's incredible to see what happened there, right? And it really like propelled consumer education forward by creating an entertainment platform, essentially, for people looking at NFTs and crypto and the blockchain. Ultimately, for me, what's interesting about NFTs and sports is that really what we're looking at is integrative marketing, like a new integrative marketing strategy that's digital. I mean, that's essentially what it is, right? It's just a way to sort of like sit at a table from a very high level and go, how do we pair a brand with an athlete, with a financial platform, with technology, and bring it all together to create a really cool experience for fans and get them engaged in a different way. And it's going to be through those entry points that you're going to see all of this consumer education happen just seriously by them using and buying NFTs. So I don't know if that answers your question. I think the other thing that's interesting is that when you talk to technologists, there seems to be at times a resistance towards spending a lot of money towards marketing dollars, right? It's like we built this amazing thing, and they're technology people. They're not necessarily marketers, but we built this amazing thing. And Andrew, this goes to something that you were just talking about a little bit as well. I come from a marketing and PR communications background. I was a journalist for a long time, so I tell stories, right? Again, to Valerian's point that this is about storytelling. I would encourage people who are really on the cusp of building all this disruptive technology to stand back a little bit and say, are we doing a really good job marketing? Because creating content creators know this, creating content is the easy part. Selling content is the hard part, right? You think like, oh, I'm done creating it. Isn't it amazing? And then right? No one's watching, no one's listening. The hard part is actually getting the message out there, right? So I encourage the technologists to really marry themselves with people who are amazing at marketing to say, how do we come together and really, for lack of a better word, zhuzh up what you're doing, or make it understandable to the consumer who's not necessarily involved in this space, to really blow it out of the water for everybody involved. And you know, sometimes I look at the tech and what they're trying to sell in terms of like, you know, new social tokens and cryptocurrencies and all these kind of social platforms that have crypto embedded into it. And I'm like, this is way too much. Like, this is not telling me a story that I'm going to understand or want to trade, because it seems dry or just totally tech focused, not consumer focused. So, and I think it's a huge opportunity for marketers and people who are in the branding world and in luxury branding and in sports, and to really like come together with how can we build something really beautiful here that can help drive revenue for everybody involved.
Yeah. Nell, you articulated that really well. Put the words, I guess.
About this as I think about like the fan experience, and also like it, you know, every athlete who comes to you and says like, I want to do an NFT drop, I'm like looking at their fan base going, I have no idea if these fans are going to even understand what this is, or if they're going to have the money to buy it, or are there going to be a bunch of crypto whales who come in and think that this is worth a collectible. And I think a lot, like, you know, some of the articles I've read recently with luxury brands who are starting to, you know, integrate into the NFT space, they're doing it as a shot in the dark. I mean, a lot of us are just saying, I can't necessarily say to people around the table, I know this is going to sell for X. We just, the market's too volatile. We don't know if the consumer base understands what we're doing. We're still playing a lot in this space, which is wonderful because it leads to a lot of creativity, but it doesn't necessarily lead to sure dollars. And so you have to go into this knowing it's going to create hype, and that's the value, not necessarily that there's going to be a dollar sign at the end of it.
Yeah, the era of the internet is actually a really good template for all of this, because you had the phase of volatility where everyone's just buying internet stocks because it's the internet, right? So it's the same thing for crypto. Everyone wants the next best token because they think it's going to change the world. And then, you know, that bubble popped, and what happened was innovation for consumers, right? Mm-hmm. Consumers aren't thinking about all of the fiber optics running underneath the ocean, you know, making all of this possible. No one's thinking about that because, quite frankly, they don't need to. The stuff doesn't matter. All you need to know is that it works. And I feel like we're getting to that phase. We're kind of stepping out of it. The volatility part is helping to, you know, champion the conversation and move it forward. But ultimately, we're moving to the stage of, okay, maybe the bubble has popped, or it is popping as we speak, and, you know, great companies are being built for consumers. And so, you know, this is kind of exciting to watch. And as Nell, you said, it is all about storytelling. How do you shape the narrative? And Hollywood plays a huge part in this, right? If they're constantly drawing parallels to Bitcoin, Silk Road, this convoluted technology, which is really just a database that you can store information on, that doesn't help our case. But I see this changing a lot more as a new wave of consumers enter the market via these, you know, these other channels, like working with these teams and whatnot. But ultimately, the only way for us to get to adoption is really through the integration of blockchain. I know we talk a lot about education, but and it's super important, but I always pull it back to the internet. You know, there was education to the education is a key point to the part of you learning what a stock was about. That's why people were focused on education. But after that passed, no one's talking about the education. The education came naturally, as Nell said. It was just a thing that progressed. And so I think that's kind of the same thing that we're seeing here. I think we are, oh crap, our time is up. I just saw our notification. But anyways, thank you so much, guys, for having this conversation. I think it's great. I mean, we should definitely just have a virtual coffee and talk amongst ourselves. But, you know, great meeting you guys. And thank you so much for participating. And thank you for everyone for listening. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much.